Hello, everyone. This is Jim Okrasinski. So, I thought I would begin the semester with a presentation on what is college learning. Over the last couple of years, and especially during the spring of 2020, when we were disrupted by the pandemic and we were forced to go from the classroom to online or remote learning, I received some comments and feedbacks from students about college learning and what was happening in the classroom. And I think there is a misconception or a misperception of what it is we do in the college classroom. So I thought that this presentation and discussion that we would have during the first week might clarify exactly what our curriculum is, how we go about delivering a college course, whether it's in person, it's virtual, or online, or even in a hybrid format. Okay, so bear with me as I work through some of my slides and I talk a little bit about what college learning is all about, right? So let's get to the slide. So when I say here as my notes is you're not in Kansas anymore, college is just a different environment than high school. In high school, most students go to school all day long. They see a teacher in a specific topic area, multiple days, 5 days a week. The teacher is a more prominent role in the educational process. And so I get a feeling that there is a little bit of a misunderstanding on how we go about it. At best, when we are even in person, I get students Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 50 minutes each session. That's 3 times a week. That's a total of 150 minutes of instruction over the course of a week. If you meet on a course Tuesday and Thursday, the classes are a little longer. They're 75 minutes, which equals that 150 minutes. So as an instructor, we do get very little time to spend on content material. Obviously, in this type of environment, then we provide more resources, more material. There might be more reading or videos. The idea here is that what makes college different is it shifts the burden of learning more from the instructor or the teacher to the student. It's just the way college is set up. It allows you the time then to read and think and act on your assignments. Everybody likes that flexibility in it, that you can only go to school so many hours a day, but with it there's good and there's bad. There is that flexibility. You can go about working, you can go about your life, right? But even without the pandemic, as I mentioned, learning shifts. Outcomes become more the responsibility of the student. So really then what does all of this mean, right? So the idea behind college student responsibility is that even in normal times, reading is essential. You have to read. You have to read with a purpose. Are my assignments, my discussion board posts, in fact, in any course, all instructors spend a great deal of time pulling together instructions, materials, selecting material. So it requires really a more purposeful level of reading, right? So you have to read with a purpose, engage with the readings and instructions, both the learning aspect of it and the process instructions. So if you're looking at readings or you're looking at instructions, right, how do you engage with that? Do you take notes? Do you annotate on a piece of paper? What are the instructions asking you specifically to do? Process instructions. How are you going to write this essay, or how are you going to complete a discussion board post? Okay. How to submit an assignment. All of the reading and the resources and the textbooks and information that we provide in a curriculum, in a class structure, leads to critical thinking. All right. So it's reading and critical thinking, but sometimes we don't really look at what critical thinking might be, right? Critical thinking, as the term suggests, has 2 components. First, it's thinking, actually thinking about stuff, applying your brain to the issues, disciplining yourself, and it does require discipline to grapple with difficult concepts for as long as necessary in order to comprehend and internalize them. In today's world, we're just quick acquirers of information. We don't really have to think too much, right? We can just Google something and we'll learn it, right? Actual thinking requires deep and protracted exposure to the subject matter through close reading, for example, or observations. Whatever you're asked to read, you have to engage with that, right? Thinking entails collecting, examining, evaluating evidence, and then questioning assumptions, making connections, formulating hypotheses, and testing them. Regardless of the college course, you have to think through what it is you're reading. What are you being asked to do? What is the task at hand? Many times I tell students that college is all about learning how to interpret instructions, how to follow instructions. If you really take the minute to think about it as you get out into the work world, what happens is that you're going to be given tasks, assigned tasks by your boss. Your job is going to be defined by a job description, and in that job description, they're going to expect certain output, certain outcome. It's just like the college classroom, right? All this thinking culminates in clear, concise, detailed, well-reasoned arguments that go beyond theory to practical application. Okay? The idea here is as you're thinking, okay, it leads to an outcome. All right, and it involves discipline. And what better place to develop that discipline than in college courses, especially the ones you don't want to take because they're not your major, right? After all, we increase our brain power just as we increase our physical strength, in as much the same way by pushing against resistance, by learning more, increasing your vocabulary, your interpretation of reading materials, your critical thinking. The greater the resistance, the more we persist in pushing against it, the greater the intellectual benefit. You can make yourself a solid academic. Believe me, I did. I'm a late life academic. I didn't go back to college until the age of 52. But a lifetime of experience taught me the benefit of a college education and what to extract from a college education. And really what you get out of a college education is not that degree. The degree opens the door. What you acquire through your time in college is your skill set. How do you go about developing the skills of reading, critical thinking, problem solving? To work is to solve problems. So the idea here is the second component about critical thinking is the critical part. How do you go about not being negative? How do you look at it in the academic context of being objective, to remove emotions? As you will see, most successful people are able to make decisions because of the absence of emotion. How they can set aside their emotions, their biases, how you can critically engage and understand the pros and cons of any topic, okay? Where we're not objective by nature, right? Striving mightily to be objective anyway is all about as good as most of us can do. It's how do we go about being objective, right? So the idea here is to make it how to be analytical, right? To analyze something is to break it down to its component parts. It's all what we call parts to a whole. It's like the chemist analyzing a compound. What makes a film good or bad or mediocre? The components, the acting, the directing, the script, the cinematography, all of them combined. Parts to a whole is how we be critical. So taking this in mind then, when we look at some of the components in a college class, you have to understand how to read and critically think about what it is. And some of this sometimes is very hard to do in nowadays in society. We have a lot of noise. We have a lot of distractions. Aside from the pandemic, we do have a lot of distractions. Social media, devices. How do we train ourselves to be still, right? How do we set aside our emotions? Not to say emotions are bad. We all need compassion and empathy in the world, especially right now. But how do we separate those from the decision-making process, right? So, we can't trust our emotions. Right? Good changes with our moods. It's inconsistent. So you want to make sure that you can separate the idea behind critical and critical thinking and make it a foundation for your decision making and what you interpret assignments, right? Like thinking, learning to recognize and set aside emotion requires a great deal of disciplines, We're emotional creatures, but it takes discipline. Much like thinking takes discipline, so is the critical component, right? So the idea behind all of this and the critical thinking, how do we be still? How do we allow ourselves the time to be able to read and critically think? College has a lack of structure. That's a good thing and a bad thing. I like going to classes here and there. I always had a very, very good self-discipline practices and time management practices. I had those habits, right? So you have to allow time to read and think. Set aside your devices. Set aside some of those aspects that distract you. Allow time to execute. Time management is the key. Everybody says to me, how do I be successful in an online class or any kind of a class? Well, you have to have time management. You have to allow the time to read and think and to execute. Flexibility and the enjoyment of the flexibility, the good and bad of college life, actually takes discipline. You have to build those good habits. And this is what we do in college, okay? We have you build good habits. How do you take those habits into the professional world is the real advantage of college. I mean, to be really honest with you, anybody can print a diploma or provide a transcript. A transcript really tells an employer you completed college. It doesn't tell an employer anything more of what you were able to accomplish or not. Yeah, if you have a better GPA than others, that can tell them that you were a successful student. But will you translate that and have the skills to be a successful employee or critical thinker and executor? That's the question here. Okay, that's what employers are paying you for, is the ability to achieve tasks, right? So that's how college is different, right? The purpose of the college education is to give you some knowledge, especially in a specified major or an area. More so is to develop those habits that you can take on to the work world. And also that skill set. Can you read? Can you think? Can you write? Can you problem solve? Can you execute all of this in the real world? That is what employers are paying for. So our purpose here at college is to not only provide you with the education, but to help you acquire the skills that you need to be successful in the real world. So, as you move through the semester, start building these habits of the mind now and these general good time management habits. Understand that we'll only get you in a limited amount of time, and that the real education comes from reading, thinking, and the important part about this is if you do not understand something, you have to ask questions for clarification. That is the critical aspect of learning, is two things: asking questions for clarification and then reflection, looking back at what you've done. Partly you'll get feedback, but that's the same as asking questions. So I hope this might help. I realize I went on a bit long in this presentation, but the idea here is really the emphasis shifts in learning from the teacher to you, the student in college. Good luck. Have a great semester.